What's up, guys? So today we're going to be working on the Mazda, or the Mazda as the other half of the world calls it. And today we're going to be working on a code that I've got, a DTC code or check engine light, whatever you want to call it. Most people are used to hearing P something when they say a code comes up, like a P0300 or a P0330 as an example of another code I've got. This time I've got a U code, and that's a U0140. So what is this code? So this code, when you read it with OBD2 scanners, comes up as communications issue with the BCM. So what's the BCM? This is a BCM. So this is a body control module. So you can see the Mazda part number there. But either way, what does a BCM do? A BCM body control module talks back and forth through the CAN bus network, which is the wires that run all over your car, with the main computer, the ECM, to make things work. So, like what things? So in an example, when you push the button for your door locks or your power windows, it sends a signal to the BCM. The BCM then sends another signal back out to the actuator or whatever that is to actually make it work, the motor to make it work. So it runs things like the instrument cluster, of course the actual output to the OBD2 information itself, like that the cob access port uses, comes out of this thing. So, something I've noticed driving around is that occasionally my cob access port will just sort of go blank for a moment and then turn off and then reboot and come back up. And so what that shows me is there's a failure to get the information either out of this thing or out of the main ECM, out of the main computer. So, but since I'm getting a BCM code, I would say that most likely either this module itself has a problem or some of the wires going in and out of it do. The pins here might be destroyed, or the wiring itself might have a break or a tear or a messed up place in it. Or what happens, another thing that happens quite frequently is grounding. This thing is probably going to be grounded through this plate right here. There may be other elements of the grounding for each of the components that goes out. And in particular with the rust on this car, as I took the engine out and put it back in, one time I did notice that the horn did not work, which would run through the BCM. And all I did was take off the ground, clean it up, and put it back on, and the horn worked fine. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be working on today. So let's get into it. All right, guys. So first thing we're going to do, anytime you're doing any type of serious electrical work, we're going to yank the battery. So we're going to at least disconnect the negative terminal. We're just going to crack that loose. Pull the terminal off and stuff it down off to the side for now. Battery's disconnected, no power inside. Next, some of the big things we're going to be looking at, we're going to obviously want to get all the junk out of the car, like anything in the center console or anything in the glove box. Floor mats, get out of our way. Any stuff we have in the glove box, we're going to get it out of here, because we're going to be taking the glove box out. Roof seems like a good place as any for now. Always got to keep the Damon Motorsports hat in the car. We're doing this because we're going to take the center console out. Okay, deep down inside there, maybe you can or can't see it, there are two 8mm bolts. Also, in the middle of the center console, if you just sort of grab a hold of this, give it a good yank. Try not to break it. Get that up and out of your way. You can see a lot more of what's going on in this space with your plug here, bolts and everything else to hold this in. We're going to go ahead and pull this shift knob off. Get this out of the way. phone mount. Now we're going to start taking apart some pieces of the dash. This is probably the easiest one to start with. Hazard lights. Simple plug right here on the bottom. Next, dash trim piece right here beside it. Also tends to pop right out. Don't want to lose those. Stereo out. If you're running an aftermarket stereo like me, it makes it even easier to get this out. Stock stereo you can look up. By the way, I would say, definitely want to mention one of the better videos out there for doing the entire dash. It's a guy in Australia called Paul in Perth. Paul in Perth. You want to look him up. He's just working on a standard Mazda 3, but definitely awesome work. Get our stereo out like that. Okay, this can't be a big of a challenge to get to, but underneath the instrument cluster, there's actually two Phillips head screws right there. Hopefully you can see that. And right there. The easiest way to get to them is to pull your steering column all the way out and then push it down. And so the cluster is really loose. It'll just come out. Just pop out. Just like that. There we go. There's your gauge cluster. Okay. None of those pins look corroded or damaged. So hopefully communication with the gauge cluster is fine, not causing any part of the problem. Alright. So much more fun. Alright, more Phillips heads. So we got one right here, holding this plastic trim in. This guy here. Okay. One thing you will want to make a note of is that this wire down here is for your hazard lights, and this wire up here is for the stock microphone, I believe, which I don't use, but it's there. And those can plug into each other, meaning you could switch them, which I have done before. And if you do that, your hazard lights will blink constantly. The second one, of course, I plugged out is a little tiny speaker that goes right here, which I don't even know if mine works, but it's there anyway. So, that piece of trim out of the way. All right. Set that out of our way. Got a little pile of Phillips head screws going on the ground there. Pulling this out from the left over to the right. That little piece of trim panel out of there. Set that on the roof for now. Next we got another Phillips head holding the far right here. And this whole thing will come out. This big jumble of wires here. This is our mini screen, whatever you want to call this thing. Okay. Primarily plugged in on the back. And here. wires themselves, I believe, are just mounted to the plastic from the harness. And that comes out of your way. Shift gears here back to the console for a second. This piece right here, it just pops out. Oh, you break it just like I did. It's okay, that'll be covered up when I put it back in. Take your time on that. I can get another one from the junkyard if I have to. Easier in neutral than reverse. And we're going to have 3 plugs holding this on. Okay, so to the left here, this piece just pops down basically. Down here a little lower. You're going to go ahead and pop this out of your way. And then this panel here will come out of your way. It's going to leave this hanging here. Okay, over on the passenger side. Once you take your glove box off, which it's very easy to get off, it's just 2 hooks. These hooks have got to go up, this hook goes down. There is a screw here, a screw in the middle. There's a screw inside this pod right here as well. And then you take this panel off here, pops up, and this panel pops off that covers this. After you do all that, the dash should just pull pretty much straight out. And you can disconnect your light. But some things we skipped over. Center console came out, HVAC controls came out. Bottom panel is all the way off down here except for that stupid the hood release, which I can't quite get off there. But it's okay. Lots more screws around the edges. And then your 2 panels that cover your SRS airbags have to come off. But after you get all that, your dash is basically just sitting in here at this point. So up here at the top, I believe that there is a light sensor. You have to come in from the passenger side to get to. That has to be unplugged. That's the final thing. You can see it right there. Last most difficult pain in the ass thing. There we go. Leave that hanging down. After that, I'm pretty much ready just to funnel all the rest of the wires out. Get it out of here. Alright, so this is where I'm at now. All the way down to, I've actually got the body control module removed. And as I've been doing this, I've been checking each plug, that I take out to see if there's any corrosion or bent, broken, or messed up pins. Some of the most challenging things about getting this thing out of here, there's really only 2 nuts that hold this thing on. Those 2 spaces right there, it sits like this. And you can see up inside of here, this bracket right here, actually, that red one, the nut didn't have to come off that. That was a mistake. I shouldn't have taken it off. I'll put it back on in a minute. But the 2 that do have to come off is this one and this one here. But this guy up here is going to be in your way. And then, of course, there's another one that sits right here as well. This guy right here is also in your way. So those have to come off as well. So once you get those off and out of your way, and then you get all 6 plugs out of this thing, The last thing left is the weirdest looking thing I've ever seen. It's this little plastic Mazda logo clip. And on the bottom of it, there's 2 slots. And you have to stick a screwdriver in the back of one while you pull out on this thing. And then it just rotates and comes out. And that thing actually goes in this hole right, which is, my hand's kind of in the way, but it's right there on the red, or on my, you can see it right there actually. And that's what holds on the bottom right there. So, but anyhow, I'm gonna take these things and let's go have a look at the 2 body control modules. So, just for reference, this is the scene currently. Destruction. All right, so I've got these 2 body control modules over here on my bench, and just for my purposes, I know that the one that I bought used is the one with these red marks right here. And so the first thing, most obvious thing I've noticed is I've got a big difference in the numbers there. One has a big F on it, and the other one has a big BY. And then, of course, some of the other numbers underneath are different. So there's probably some differences in these 2 modules. That does give me a little concern as to whether or not this one will work as a replacement for this one. I don't know if I'll have problems with door locks, instrument cluster, or something else happening. But at this point, I think I'm going to gamble it. And the reason why is because I did manage to find a post on Mazda 3 forum where someone else did a write-up on this same kind of a job. And they did actually use one to the other with different numbers, and they said they had no problems. The one thing they called out in that video, which I'm going to do pretty thoroughly, is get in here and clean all these connectors using some good old electronic connections cleaner. This stuff's like, I think largely alcohol and dries super fast. So spray it in there, use a little air to clean those out. Probably do the same thing to the plugs. And then get these cleaned up, get this one cleaned up. I think I'm gonna give this one a try. Just gonna spray these connectors out. This stuff dries super fast. And get in here with some air. Compressor will probably kick on here in a second. It'll be super loud. Just a FYI. Get in here and spray these connectors as well. And spray these out. So, I'll go at it again here. In there, just get it lined up with those 2 bolts. There we go. Back where it goes. And the one on top. Okay, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right. All right, it's back in there. Now we just have an hour and a half or 2 hours worth of dash putting it back together. All right, so I'm about 95% back together at this point. I've got the entire dash back in. All the wires connected for the stereo. All this back in. Each time I do this job, this is the second time, and I'm all done, and every screw that I took out has been replaced. I'm amazed at that. Some things that are kind of weird in here, like this car, I think was a Sport or whatever the lower trim package was. It wasn't a Tech. So there's like 2 wires that just dead into plastic on the back of this. There is a plug down in here that doesn't actually plug into anything. So you can kind of see it right back in there. Kind of hard to see. But yeah, also coming off the actual BCM, there is like 2 other ports that I think would come up to this if I had a higher trim car. I'm not quite sure. I think there might be some other traction control buttons there. You just get DSC, and for us folks with a sport car, we just unplug our SWAS sensor down here. Otherwise, it interferes with pretty much every kind of driving you can imagine. Once you start tuning the car and making more than stock horsepower, even on stock power, it will really cut your throttle out a lot if you don't disable it. So I guess we got sort of a moment of truth coming in here for the BCM to see if it works or not. I guess worst case scenario, I plug the battery back in and all the airbags go off and the interior of the car is destroyed. Best case scenario, which I'm hoping for, plug the car back in on the battery and everything works great, no problems whatsoever. So in reality, it'll probably wind up being something in between. Hopefully I don't find too many things that don't function, but we're going to give it a try. Got the keys, so we're going to try to locks, unlocks. That's a great sign. So it still recognizes the key with no issue. All right, let's hop in. Let's try some, that's unusual. Usually it's not all lit up from red from just unlocking the car. But we'll crack the garage a little. And let's try some ignition on. See what we get. Of course, I got my GPS. It appears to be working. Just get over here real quick and see. Okay, lock and lock, unlock appear to work. Let's go full ignition. And the wipers are going nuts just because we smashed the switch when we were working. But headlights are working. Headlights, fog lights. That's good. HVAC appears to be on. Turn that off real quick. Check engine is flashing, flashing, flashing. Wonder what it wants. Wants to tell me
some real rage.
Some code is bad probably. So let's see. Windows work. That's a plus. All right. Let's try to start it up. It's looking like this might be a win. We'll see. I'm going to put the rest of it back together, and we'll go for a test drive and test out all the other features, make sure everything's working again, and I'll put the access port back on, and we'll see if any codes pop up. So. Alright, so everything seems to be working. The only thing that's not working is, I guess everything is not working, but car is working great. But the access port is not working great. So I've noticed if I get up into the fuse panel area and sort of jiggle the OBD2 wire, that is, so I should start by saying I've got my OBD2 wire pulled loose from the mount down there where it normally lives, and so I could just plug the access port straight into it, leave it plugged in all the time so I can watch perimeters when I'm driving. And if I get up in there and jiggle that wire, the access port comes on and I can see all the perimeters and everything else. So I think my problem is in that wire itself, wherever it leads back to, or on the other end of it, or the actual end of it where it connects into the access port cable. So at a minimum, I have confirmed that you can just swap a body control module, but it looks like I'm going to have to take apart at least the bottom half of the dash again to get up into there to see sort of the back of that cable where it leads into, and then diagnose if one side of that cable is bad, maybe pull some pins out or reattach the pins or clean them up. But obviously that cable has got something going on, because if I jiggle it, the access port comes on, all the data and everything else. So at first I was a little freaked out that the access port wasn't going to work at all because of the body control module, but it's fine, just as is the rest of the car. So, but this communication with the access port might actually be the reason I got the U0140 code in the first place. So we'll have to keep diagnosing and see if I can't figure it out. Alright, so jump forward in time, it's a few days later. I've been driving around with the new body control module in, and I've had no issues as far as the check engine light so far. I think it was either actually the module or it was that wire that I cleaned up for the OBD2 connector that I talked about already. But one problem I did run into was my trunk release would not work anymore. So I was back here pushing the button, and I could hear it actually sending the signal up to the BCM. But whatever was coming back was not making the servo actually work to pop the trunk lid. So what I thought was, well, maybe the signal's coming up and maybe it's actually coming back, but there's something slightly different about the wiring harness from one model to the next. And that's exactly what was going on. So what I did was I got up in here and I got to this motor, and I actually got the wiring harness out, and I noticed going in this connector that goes to the actual motor right here that there were 4 wires: a green, a black, a pink, and a white. So I started doing some testing with my voltmeter here, and I wrote my chicken scratch notes about what was going on, but the bottom line was at a standstill, there was with the hatch open to make the light come on, there was a constant 12 volts across the black and white wires. There was a 5 volts across the black and pink wires. And then across the black and green wires, there was nothing. And so then what I started to do was test each of these wires again together with what happens when I push the switch. And so what I noticed was when I pushed the switch, the black and green wire were getting the 12 volts. So then I took the motor out and I took it up to the battery, and I endeavored to figure out which pins on the motor actually need 12 volts to activate the motor, this actual servo. And what I discovered was that the top 2 pins, which originally would have been the would have been the pink, the black and white, and what it actually needed was pink. I actually flipped, as you can see here. I actually went to go change. I wanted to just pull out the Mywire connectors, but I lost my depainting tool. So I messed with it for about 10 minutes and I couldn't get it out of there. So eventually I just said, I'm going to cut the wires. And I just swapped the wires back here before they come into the connector. But anyway, the bottom line is that after doing that, and I assess, you know, that simply there is just some minor difference in the wiring harness. Now, by doing that, I can close the trunk and the button works. So far so good with the BCM project. I will probably keep another eye on this in a couple more days and report back if I get another check engine light or something else wrong. Thanks. All right, guys, so I made some more discoveries along the way. Some of what I thought started out was wrong, and just want to share what I learned. So when I started this out, I had sort of two codes and two sets of concerns. I had a P303 code, P0303, and I had a U0140 code. So what I've discovered is that the only thing that was actually making the check engine light come on was the P0303 code. The U0140 code was just a background code. So while it comes up as body control module communication, I've discovered long term that that code has nothing to do with anything wrong with my body control module. So symptoms that went with these codes, right, that had me sort of diagnosing. P0303, at idle, I've got sort of a stutter, an occasional like sound, but at wide open throttle, I don't seem to have any problems whatsoever. I don't see any knock or anything like that. That could just be because knock sensitivity has been turned around in my tune, not quite sure. But I am still diagnosing what was wrong to cause P303. As far as the U0140 code, I had one symptom that was coming along with this that made me think it was an issue, which was my access port cable was occasionally dropping communications to the access port, causing the screen just to go blank and then restart. So I thought it was actually the body control module. So I did all that work to take it all apart, really kind of for nothing. I could have just cleaned the cable. That would have fixed that issue. And at the end of the day, the U0140 code I discovered by having a look at the factory service manual was really only there because I've got the steering wheel angle sensor unplugged, which is one of the most popular things that everyone does with this car because it has extremely large cutout, and there's been lots of effort for people to find a way around this. Well, there isn't a good way around it besides programming, and no one's done that yet. And as far as just turning off any light or anything with it, like also that's not allowed anymore because of regulations. But either way, yeah, the way that I figured this out was in the factory service manual. It tells you that in order to diagnose this sort of a problem, you need to use the Mazda MMS diagnostic software. Of course, I don't have that. But if you read the description in the factory service manual, it talks to you about, and in this video, I'll kind of put a quick flash of that screen up for a second. It talks about little symbols, pluses and minuses, that appear in that diagnostic software whenever you plug it in to kind of check this. And for this issue, there was only 4 possibilities. I believe it was the ABS system, 2 other systems, power steering, and then 1 more system. And then the 4th system, of course, was the steering wheel angle sensor, or the DSC, Dynamic Stability Control System. So, of course, the light bulb kind of came on in my head when I read that. And I went and plugged the steering wheel angle sensor back in, and what do you know, the U0140 code goes away. So that was a solution for that code. But now I'm on to diagnosing what I can figure out to fix this other code, the P0303. So guys, I was going to kind of put together both diagnosing the U0140 and my misfire code in one video, but it's too much information. It's too much time. So my mystery around the U0140 code is solved, but my diagnosis of the misfire code is going to go on in my next video. I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff with that one about using ForeScan to diagnose when the misfire is happening, and then some of the steps that I'm doing, coils, plugs, ignitions, wiring, everything else that I'm looking through in order to try to figure out what's causing that issue. So that's all for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.